Today, I just wanted to record a short video sharing my experience with setting boundaries in your own personal life and how that is such a freedom for authentic expression, but also how it's a gift to other people and also about triggers and stuff. So all of this is in response to, some questions, but really just from my own personal discoveries as this path goes deeper for me. So personally, before this whole awakening journey, I was very bad at setting boundaries. I didn't know. I think it happens a lot when you're quite a compassionate, deep feeler. I didn't know this. I didn't know this in the past when I was growing up, a teenager and stuff. I probably would have fought against anybody telling me that I was sensitive, that I was that kind of a type of person, empathic. I definitely repressed that side of myself for a long time. And as this letting go process has happened, it's become clearer and clearer to me that that's a really important part of my natural expression of my personality, is being in touch with other people's emotions, and I'm just quite sensitive and picking all of that up. But I think for people like that, and I know there's people that watch my videos that are of a similar personality type or makeup, specifically people that often get sick. There's many different reasons, right? I know people that are sick that have quite different personalities to me, but I know that's a big part of it, right? It's often this kind of empathic type who's, wants to help and all of that. And a lot of that is due to bad boundaries, right? So too much people pleasing, not authentically expressing because we're too afraid of, stepping on somebody's toes or something like that. So the key points I want to address in this video is that setting boundaries is not, it's funny, right? The mind gets us all backwards. We're often afraid to set boundaries because it feels selfish, right? It feels like you're selfish. You're not caring about others or something like that. But from my own experience, as you do the emotion work, the shadow work, the letting go, the awakenings, all of that, then you can start to integrate this into your life, right? And that's been part of the later stages for me is it's not all just about sitting on the mat and meditating. It's about learning how to authentically express in daily life. And it's become clearer and clearer to me that the more that I've learned to set boundaries, because I've worked with the fear, right? So once you've worked with the fear, you've worked with the doubt, you sat with it, you felt it, you've allowed it, you've loved it, and then it releases naturally. Then it becomes much easier to, or just naturally set boundaries, right? You just kind of fall back into your authentic expression. And what I've noticed through this is that it's a gift to other people, because you're no longer relying on them to set your boundaries. You're no longer relying on them to look after you, to soothe you, all of that. It's like you were putting this extra burden on others by not setting your boundaries. So I wanted to kind of make that clear, that the mind gets this backwards, that you're actually being more compassionate by setting your own boundaries. And I've just seen this in my friendships, my family, my relationships, that the more that I've just come back into being an ordinary human, but really just not being afraid to express authentically, to be myself, the more that they are able to be authentically and be themselves, because I'm not placing expectations on them anymore. I'm not placing this burden of, you need to behave like this so that I feel good. It's like once you've worked with all your own triggers, you've worked with, your own inner repressed emotions, your own inner, all your own inner stuff, you stop placing the burden on others, and then you set your own boundaries. You become a much more authentic expression of yourself, and it's a gift to everybody else. It's like in Adyashanti's book, The End of Your World, he says, for you to really have true inner freedom, you have to give the world freedom. You have to give everybody freedom to be exactly who they are, to think exactly what they want to think of you. And there will be fear barriers towards that, right? There will be reasons that you aren't acting like that at the moment, because there's kind of repressed emotion in between authentic expression and where you are now. So you have to go through that. It's not just like, I'd known this for a long time before awakening. I was like, I need to be myself more. I need to stop caring what other people think. But the reason I wasn't able to do that is because I didn't want to feel into the shame, the fear, all the uncomfortable stuff. Once you feel into that, then it's natural. So I just wanted to share that because it's something that I recently has clicked into place for me, the boundaries after all the shadow work. And it's just so cool to see how it plays out in everybody around me, that I'm no longer expecting anybody to be anything other than they are. And then there's just this natural harmony, really. It's like all my relationships are better with family, with friends. There was a challenging period as I navigated the shadow work that all this kind of repressed emotional material would come up of, wow, I didn't know I had this feeling against this person, or, so much judgment as well. And once you work, it's always internal though, right? The mind will project it onto everybody else that you need to wake up. You need to deal with your shit. But the only reason you want them to wake up is because the way they're behaving is making you uncomfortable. It's making you feel something you don't want to feel. So it's really that balance, right? For me, I was very strongly towards that side during this process, as other people would trigger me and then I would just sit with it and not react. And that was good. That is an important phase of the journey. It is. You have to do that work. But then I needed to start actually setting boundaries. I needed to actually start just responding out of intuition, just because I was making it too serious, right? So like with my family and stuff, often people would trigger me, but if you just respond back with a boundary, it actually puts the other person at ease. They're testing the boundaries. They can see, oh, okay, there's a boundary. And then it feels like filling a void that this kind of, I don't know how this will come out, but that's how that appeared to me in my thoughts, was it feels like stepping into the space in reality that was missing, right? It's like you've filled the missing link and now things just flow. Like when I was trying to hold back my expression too much, when I was trying to repress my personality, because that's a easy trap to fall into when you're doing this awakening work, when you're letting go of the ego, when you letting go of the self, the mind will misinterpret that as saying, I must become no one. I must become a negative personality. And I did that for a while. I was like, oh, I have no desires. I have, whenever anybody wanted to do anything, I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to remove my personality from the situation. It's like, let's do what you want. There's no me here. That's the wrong way, right? That's going against the flow of reality. You kind of have to see this it's part of the journey. You have to see how that is suffering as well. And now it's like I'm filling that space that I was holding back from. It's like, oh, okay, maybe, I needed to go through that phase for a while. Everything is showing you what it needs to show you. But now I can see how it's much more natural for me to actually bring my personality into situations, into kind of relationships and be more me than ever before. And then it feels like less of a me. It's kind of funny, right? It's like you stop trying to be this negative self, this negative personality, and you just express authentically. And then there's no one holding back anymore. There's just the real flow of life, and you actually can, you're playing your part, right? I can see how me being more me allows other people to be more themselves as well. And then things just flow more. So I wanted to talk about that because I think it's a very common part of the journey. I've heard Angelo talk about it. The mind loves it once you realize that identity isn't what you thought it was with like a first awakening. then we go too far to the other side and we create this negative identity. Like there's no me at all, but that's still identity. The real no me, and I'm just showing from my experience here, I'm not done. I'm not where Angelo and Adyashanti and all these guys are. I'm just sharing my insights along the path. It's like, yeah, become fully yourself, and then you will see that there's not actually a need for a self, because then you just flow. So this was just like a mishmash of insights I felt like sharing this morning. I had a cup of coffee, and then it always gives me that dopamine hit where I just want to express. So, but what it also does is it like kind of my mind runs faster than usual. So yeah, I don't know how it comes across to a non-caffeinated person, but I just felt like sharing. And yeah. And last thing, I guess, is that the mind, it's such a common thing I hear, and it was probably a fear of mine as well at some point, is the mind's so afraid of what's life going to be like if I completely let go of thoughts, if I completely let go of mind. Surely I can't take care of my responsibilities. Surely I can't take care of my job, my children, my day-to-day tasks. And it just happens better than ever before, right? Like I can see it. I play a lot of sports and like do competitive cycling races for fun. And in the cycling races, in the tennis I play, in everything I do, the less distance we hold by trying to be controlling in the mind, the more natural you are able to use your talents, right? It's like I'm way better at tennis if I just let my body play the way it does without trying to think. So if there's thoughts, right? But I just see when the mind's wandering, when it's trying to think about the game, and then it's like, what if I just let go and get into the flow of it, and things just happen better. So don't believe that fear. The mind is lying to you, saying it's just because there's repressed fear, right? So it will come up, and then if you believe the story, it's going to catch you, right? So if it's saying like, okay, I hear what you're saying. Like I get this a lot in the comments. I'll make a video talking about limiting beliefs. I'll make a video talking about fear, and then I'll get a comment saying, yes, but, and then that's when a little bit of fear catches us. A little bit of doubt catches us. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but there still has to be some form of holding back, surely. And if, I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I'm just here to share. And I know that some of the stuff resonates with some people. So the thing is, if it resonates with somebody like really deeply, then I would want to push you, right? Then I would want to push you. But I don't want to push somebody that wants to hold on to the fear, that wants to hold back, or that is too afraid to let go. That's fine. I'm not in charge of your process at all. I'm not really even concerned if people don't wake up, if people don't, go there if they don't want to, right? If someone really wants to, and they have the right mindset, because you could say you want to, but then you can just see the way that somebody will resist everything that I'm saying. Then it's like you don't actually. Sure, or there's really strong competing agendas, and maybe you're still too strongly identified with the fear. And I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm not here to push you to wake up. I'm just sharing. But if somebody wants to, and you can just tell it, right? If someone's authentic and they're like, "Yep, I see that there's fear. I see that there's doubt. I can see my mind, but I still get caught up." That then I would love to, I'm all there for that person. So. I guess last thing in this mishmash of I think along those lines of what I was just saying, with this whole, as I said, being more authentic, releasing all of your own shit, I can see how some people just don't need to wake up, right? They're not, I mean, sure, they still get caught up in their mind and stuff, but I've got friends of mine that just, now that I'm more authentic and natural, there's just no need for, they're just following their authentic path, right? It's like my authentic path was I had to wake up before I could be authentic, because that's just what I had to do, right? There was too much suffering, and life wanted me to wake the fuck up. But there's that's what I was kind of saying. There's no need to go and wake up the world, because I can see how that would be pushing some people off their authentic path. Like, I have friends who are just able to naturally, express themselves. Sure, there's probably still doubt. There's probably still some suffering, but they just, maybe their paths will happen exactly how it needs to, right? You realize that you're this infinitely small part of this kind of web of life. And who the hell are you to say, who somebody else should be? But we feel the need to do that when we haven't set our own boundaries properly, right? So that's when we get triggered by other people, is when we haven't set our boundaries and then somebody acts a certain way and then it triggers us. Once you've done the inner work and set your own boundaries, the burden kind of really is on you to set boundaries around someone, right? You can get to a space where you're absolutely okay with everybody being as they are, but that doesn't mean you have to spend time with somebody who doesn't respect your boundaries. So, if somebody is abusive or is an asshole, there's actually no need for them to be different. There's just, you set your boundaries. It might sound weird, but it's a real relief. It's like, that's that person, that's how they are. And then we get upset with them for being who they are when we don't set our boundaries, right? So when we stay in an abusive, whatever, interaction, and it's difficult, right? People are going to say, I'm victim shaming or gaslighting or whatever the popular terminology is online nowadays. But you can, I'm just sharing from my own experience, and you can realize it in yourself that the burden is on you to set your boundaries. And then either you leave the relationship. Often the other person will change when you actually set boundaries. They'll be like, oh, wow, they were kind of abusing the fact that there was no boundaries. It kind of feels uncomfortable to them. It's crazy how that works, that when you set boundaries, it makes the other person more comfortable. It's like I was saying, you're filling that void in reality where you needed to set your boundaries, and now things can flow. They can become themselves more. And again, I don't know how this plays out on a situation to situation basis, but maybe you leave the relationship, maybe you change the job, maybe who knows, that's for you to figure out. But yeah, you can really get to the space where nobody needs to change, because you're in charge of your own boundaries. So, but if this, if it feels confusing, if it feels difficult, it takes time, right? It's not like I just was like, okay, I need to set my boundaries, and bam, I got to the space where everything's comfortable. No ways. It's been a bumpy, messy ride filled with lots of difficult things. But feeling the difficult things is what makes it easier to set your boundaries, to become more yourself, because you realize that was what was preventing it. So yeah, you have to go through the fear. You have to go through the doubt. You have to go through the helplessness, the vulnerability, the feeling like you're dissolving and your whole life is falling apart. Been there, right? It's part of it. And then the other side is worth it. But yeah, you can't, there's no point in imagining the future. Just keep coming back to here. So I'll leave it at that. And I hope this cohesion of different topics resonates.